Justine's a mom. I'm a mom. Obviously, Avishai is.
My son's 3.5.
He's 3.5. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Mine's 2.5. So we're about a year apart. But I have always loved like your transparency on social with being a mom, being a working mom. It is like to an outsider, obviously, like your job is a very like shiny job, right? But like you kind of, I love that you show like all aspects of like, yes, shiny job, balance, being a mom. Like there is like obviously something that happens when you have a mom and a battle in career.
Totally.
And like, how have you managed that balance? Is there balance? I don't know. Like I know the answer, my answer, but I'm curious to see.
Now I want to know your answer.
I know.
I mean, yeah, I don't think there is balance for sure. I think that when you're a parent, you're always gonna feel guilty for something. Yeah. So either if your career's thriving, you might feel like you're lacking as a parent, or if you're thriving in parenthood, you might feel like your career is lacking. Yep. And so I think I just embraced that there is no such thing as balance, and that there's seasons of life where there's focus on different things. Yep. And so, yeah, sometimes you're going to focus, my life right now is probably just parenthood and work. Yeah. And like, that's it. Yeah. And that's, and that's okay, because I know in the future, in 10 years, I'll go on a date with my husband again. No,
I know. Just kidding. I know. I'm like, someday.
One day. Yeah. But it's okay, because everything's a phase. And that's, my husband and I constantly tell that to each other. We're like, it's just a phase. Mm-hmm. It's just a season. Like, and as a mom, things go by so fast. Yeah. Like, you feel like you're stuck in a phase for so long, and then you're like, oh, that is over, like in a few months. Yep. So we just have to constantly remind ourselves, like, it's a phase, it's a phase, it's a phase.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. Like, that's kind of it's kind of like how people say like work-life balance. Sometimes you're like, it's an elusive thing, like balance in life, balance in motherhood. It's like sometimes there's not balance. And like you said, it doesn't even mean that you are failing.
I know.
It just means that you feel that you're failing, right? Yeah. Like you would ask your husband, you would ask your son, you would ask, they'd be like, you are an amazing mom. Like, oh my God. But, totally. But in your head, mentally, when you're on a plane and you're leaving your child for 2 days,
and they're screaming and being like, don't go to work. Yeah. Like, how can you not feel that? Yeah.
Even like, when I'll come to LA for work and I'll FaceTime Brody and my husband Scott, and even when he's like super happy, there's even part of me that I'm like, oh, he doesn't even care that I'm going. Right. Oh, you know what I mean? Totally. Like, but isn't that what you want? Totally. It's just a weird.
Totally. And even my son and my husband will go and have an amazing day. They like go to a farm and they're like go to a museum, and I'm like, oh, you get to do all the fun things. Like, I want to go to a museum and a farm too. So it's just. Like, there's just never going to be a perfect balance.
Yeah. And it's, I always say it's like a double-edged sword. I love the kind of the notion of like, women can do it all. Like in so many ways, right? I love that. I do love that, because it's true. If you want to stay at home, you stay at home. If you want to work, if you want to try to do a balance of both, whatever. Yeah. Again, quotations balance. But there's also something around like, I feel like sometimes that can be harmful, because it makes you feel like you have to do it all and you have to do it well. Right. But the truth is, you can do it all, and sometimes you're not going to do it all well, or
at the same time. Sometimes you're just not going to do it all at the same time.
Exactly. And that's okay. Exactly. Yeah. And like I think that's like the next step of evolution of that like kind of sentiment is going like, but it's also okay to not feel like you're doing it all, and it's also, or to feel like you're failing at some of it. Yes. And again, doesn't mean that you are, but it doesn't mean that, like, it's real to feel that way. Totally. And we travel a lot, but even if you don't travel, you're just driving local to work every day. Right. And just feeling like you're missing time, or you're feeling, or, you've decided to stay home and you think about your career. Like, there's just so many things I think about being a mom and working, and I think you have a great outlook on it. I mean, again, you're well,
I've learned. I've learned. I used to get down about it because it's hard, and also you feel. I don't know if you felt like this, but I felt like as when I first had my son, you kind of like lose yourself a little bit. So it's hard to find the balance of like, maybe you're not going to come back to work and like be the person that you were before because you're so. Like, and you're so in it with your kid that's just like all it is. Yep. And so it's hard to come back to who you are and like show up as your best, show up the way you want to be. Yeah.
I mean, and that's just like mentally, I mean, physical side mentally, too, especially in like the beginning, obviously. But no, I had one of my bosses tell me, and it was really good advice, but she said like, you also like, because when I got pregnant, or when I was even thinking about getting pregnant, I was actually really scared because I was like, am I going to derail my career?
Totally. Like, that's truly, what everyone thinks
exactly.
about. Like, if you're a working woman, you're going to think about that.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people don't
but,
have kids. Yeah. Or that's why people have surrogates. And that's why people make like different decisions because of there is a fear there for women.
Yeah.
Well, so unfair.
It is
men
unfair.
Don't have that fear.
No, exactly. And to me, I just was like, oh, I feel like I'm getting like a good trajectory and I'm starting to like do the things that I wanted to do, but I also really want to have a baby. Mm-hmm. And so then I got pregnant, and then you go into actually planning your maternity leave, depending what everybody, hopefully, I mean, not everyone has maternity leave, which is another thing. But like for me, I was like, oh, should I come back earlier? Like, and there's just so many thoughts that go back into it because I'm like, I don't want to lose my career. And I had one of my bosses tell me, you also don't just be prepared to like, be like hit the ground running when you come back. There is a possibility that you may even change your mind on your career.
Yeah.
You may actually go like, I do want to come back to my job, but actually I want to pump the brakes and I want to be like in this space. I maybe like, she's not saying you need to, but she was like, you don't know how you're going to react and how you're going to feel. This is a new life for you.
Oh, I love that she told you this.
Yeah. So she was like, if you come back and you're like, I'm content, I'm happy, and I want to be in this space, you don't have to climb the ladder right when you get back. You can live here.
That is really good advice.
Yeah, or it's also okay if you still want to climb the ladder.
Right.
Like truly, she's like, if you come back and you're like, no, I still want to keep going and I want to like push myself forward, but like just know that you don't know which one it's going to be.
Totally.
Yeah, and that I think especially in the space that you're in too, like celebrity, it is fast paced and there's a lot like going on freelance, right? Like you, I think you've talked about you came to work, I think you said like 5 weeks after.
Yeah, 5 weeks.
Which again, also is everyone's, it depends on what you want to do and how you do it.
Totally.
Like, and physically and mentally, like where you're at. Was that a battle for you? Like, how did you feel? Because you've talked about it a little bit.
I felt the same thing. Like I was afraid to be out of work. And especially as a freelancer, we don't have maternity leave. Like I'm self-employed. So I was afraid of losing my clients. I was afraid of like not being on social. I was just afraid of, there's a lot of fear when you have a child for the first time. So I came back to work 5 weeks postpartum, which I would not recommend. Like if I were to do it again, I don't think I would be so rushed to come back because it was really hard and you're still healing at that point. And like, I was breastfeeding, and so I'd be leaking milk everywhere at work and like trying to pump, like I had the LV, like trying to pump like while I'm working. And it was just like, it's just a lot. And I wish I didn't put that pressure on myself to do that so quickly because your career will always be there. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you take 1 extra week or 1 extra month or like whatever it is, like you're not going to disappear. And also like something that gave me a lot of solace when I was thinking about having a child and like the fear that's there with your career is that so many people that I knew that had children, their career took off after they had children. And I was like, why would I let this stop me? And also, why would I let that fear stop me from having this beautiful life experience? That's also important to me. And then you realize, like through having a child, I realized that there's other life experiences that are as important to me as my career is.
Yes. It's for me, my career is as important as it was, but I have other things that are also important, like my family and just my my relationships and stuff. Whereas I think prior to that, when you don't have it, and listen, that doesn't mean that whether you have a kid or not, you can always find things that are just, it doesn't have to be a kid, right?
There's so many ways to live a fulfilling life.
Exactly. But like when my career was along with my husband and my family, my top priority, but like really a driver in my life, it still is, but it's parsed out in different ways. And so I think that's the thing is like, for me, and again, when we talk about motherhood, and I think you're such an amazing mom, and just
thank you. Likewise, I know. I feel like we relate on the mom stuff.
And seeing you had you had obviously Avi like a year before, Brody came, but seeing you and talk about it, it did make me feel like I was like there's a couple people who like I was like, okay, I mean this is a real experience, right? And like, you don't know what it's going to be, and you can't let these thoughts hold you back if this is what you want. And I knew that I wanted to have a child, but it's also, and then you also, I had my baby, and then I was like, I do not care about work. Like I was so in it that I was like, never mind. Actually, I do not care about this at all. And then when I decided to come back, and when I did come back, I think I took like maybe 4 months off, and again, feel very lucky to have that. And thank you, IPSY. Like wonderful company. Amazing. But like when I did come back, like, it took a minute to ease into it, and then I felt like work-wise, I was like, I am ready to hit the ground. Totally. You know, like this for me, it didn't necessarily change. Like I still wanted to keep moving and move
totally
forward. So
same.
Yeah,
totally.
And then all of a sudden there's 2 or 3, and you're like, yeah, this didn't slow down my career.
No, totally.
And hopefully that's how it is for most people. But I do agree. You don't want to hold yourself back with the thoughts, but it's also very natural. I had those thoughts. You obviously had those thoughts. So,
and I think also there is almost a blessing that comes when you have a child where it really focuses you, because you're like, I'm not going to dick around because I have this limited time where I am going to be working, and I am going to do what I need to do. I'm going to do the things that are important. I'm going to prioritize my time, and I'm going to get things done so that I can be done and go home to my child. You know, I'm not going to be like dilly-dallying or like doing things that aren't worth it to me, or doing things that aren't going to help me get to where I want to go. Like I'm going to be more intentional about what I'm doing.
I totally agree.